Hey guys, welcome to this week's FAQ in Freebie Friday. Now for those of you new to the channel, these videos are all about answering your health related questions. So if you have a question concerning your health, something in regards to diet or nutrition, Chinese medicine, herbalism, or really anything under the umbrella of holistic health and wellness, and you feel that we could help you answer that question, all you have to do is leave your questions in the comment section below, and we'll be answering those based on popularity, the questions that we feel will be most beneficial to the whole community, and of course the questions that we are capable of answering. And without further ado, let's get into this week's questions. Okay, so our first question reads, how to clear pesticides like glyphosate and atrazine? Thanks. Okay, so how do you clear herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, or toxins in general from the body if you've been exposed to them? Now, I'd imagine that most of you are familiar with what a pesticide or herbicide is. However, maybe not all of you understand the negative health consequences that they can have in the body. So if you hop online, you do a little bit of research, you'll come to find that most herbicides or pesticides, at least the synthetic and commercial ones, are toxic to the body. So your body doesn't metabolize them efficiently. They disrupt the metabolism, they impair immunity, digestion, they can lead to inflammation and cause health issues. Now, most of them achieve this toxic effect due to their estrogenic nature. So atrazine, as they mentioned, is a very estrogenic mimicking herbicide that actually, when exposed to frogs, turns the frogs' sexual reproductive organs into female. So it's very feminizing, it destroys the androgen productions in the body, and estrogen is more or less a stress chemical that happens to mimic the pathology of disease and aging. So we definitely want to avoid the exposure of herbicides and pesticides and do whatever we can to eliminate them from the body if you've been exposed. Now, I have a few simple things that you can do to help you eliminate pesticides from the body, and it's really going to come back to optimizing your metabolism. So if you have a fast, robust metabolism, that's going to ensure that your body is detoxifying efficiently. Metabolism determines the rate and the efficiency of your detoxification system. So take a look at a child. A child usually has a really robust metabolism and it gets over sicknesses pretty fast. So it can eliminate and expel viruses and pathogens from the body pretty efficiently. And take a look at like a dog or an animal that has a really fast metabolic rate. The same thing applies. They can eat all sorts of nasty crap. Dogs eat their own shit covered in pathogens and bacteria, and they don't really get sick because they have such a fast, robust metabolism. They can metabolize any toxins and eliminate them efficiently. So this is what you're going to want to do for yourself. You're going to want to take proactive steps to, first and foremost, eliminate or greatly reduce your exposure to things that would suppress your metabolism. So this includes, obviously, herbicides and pesticides. So perhaps the number one thing that you're going to want to do is to avoid your exposure to them. So in practice, that looks like not eating conventional food, sticking to homegrown, local organic food that doesn't use herbicides and pesticides. And from that point, again, take proactive steps to eliminate other things that would suppress your metabolism, like stress, dietary stress, so processed foods, particularly polyunsaturated fats, and grains and legumes all suppress the metabolism. Most starches will suppress the metabolism, as well as raw vegetables. So you're going to want to stick to a diet that boosts the metabolism. If you're curious about what that looks like in further detail, definitely check out my healthy weight loss course, which is more or less a course on boosting the metabolism and optimizing thyroid function, weight loss just being a byproduct of that. So those are some things that you can do to, reduce anything that would suppress the metabolism, but then you're going to want to do things to boost the metabolism. So this includes things like getting moderate, healthy exercise. So the best forms of exercise, in my opinion, are going on walks, bike riding, more leisurely things that get your heart rate up, but you're not, gasping for air, becoming fatigued or exhausted. Strength training is a good way to temporarily boost the metabolism. Coffee and caffeine are really pro-metabolic nutrients that boost the metabolism. They synergize with thyroid hormone and will bring up the metabolic rate, as well as cacao or chocolate, good chocolate, of course. And fruits are really great for boosting the metabolism. Fructose or fruit sugar acts like T3 in the body. So consuming healthy organic fruit, ripe fruit, is a good way to boost the metabolism. And fruit is not only efficient at boosting the metabolism, but also ensuring optimal detoxification amongst good digestion. Another major benefit here in boosting the metabolism, other than boosting detoxification, is that if you have a fast, robust metabolism, you're less likely to store fat. And all these toxins, herbicides, pesticides, and any other toxic substance has a high affinity to fat. So that means the more fat you have accumulated in your body, the more toxins you're likely to accumulate in your tissues as well. So in addition to boosting the metabolism for optimizing detoxification, you're also going to be optimizing your body's rate at metabolizing or oxidizing your nutrients, so that way you're not storing excess fat. So that brings me to my second tip, which would be to take proactive steps to eliminate any excess unnecessary fat you have in your body, because again, that will create an environment for toxins to be stored. So again, definitely check out my healthy weight loss course for tips on how to lose weight in a healthy mannerism. Another practical tip here is that you're going to want to avoid the consumption of polyunsaturated fats and consume more saturated fats, because the polyunsaturated fats, they don't digest or metabolize, so they're instantly stored as fat tissue in the body, and this is very unfavorable for good health and of course trying to avoid any sort of toxic accumulation in the body, because the polyunsaturated fats, they're more or less toxic in nature, they're estrogenic, and they're going to have a greater affinity towards the toxins, whereas the saturated fats are more protective to your body. So that's one practical way to boost the metabolism and optimize your fat composition, so that way it's less toxic. In addition to those tips, I would definitely recommend a few different detoxifying herbs, starting off with milk thistle, which has a compound that helps to assist the liver in all phases of liver detoxification, as well as protecting your liver and your entire body from the inflammatory effects of toxins. So milk thistle is a really fantastic herb for anybody who's been exposed to any sort of toxins or that have a high toxic accumulation in the body. In addition to that, I would definitely recommend consuming more parsley and cilantro, which contain apigenin, which is a very powerful anti-inflammatory substance, which is really protective again towards the liver. And ultimately, you want to protect your liver, you want to optimize liver function to ensure that it's capable of ridding your body of any toxins. So in addition to these tips, definitely watch the videos I made on how to detoxify your liver efficiently and healthfully. Okay, so that brings us to our second question, and this one reads, is it true that excess facial hair and thick body hair in women is caused by too much testosterone? And is there anything that you can do to reverse it naturally? Okay, so from my understanding and research, facial hair and body hair in women, also known as hirsutism, is caused by androgens but not testosterone. And there's another component to this issue. So what's happening in this condition is actually very similar to what happens in the so-called androgenic alopecia, so hair loss, in other words, in both men and women, which is hyperadrenalism, so overactive adrenals, so stressed out adrenals, accompanied by hypothyroidism. So what happens when you have this hormonal imbalance? Excess adrenal hormones being secreted, particularly DHEA and cortisol, and low thyroid, is that DHEA is rapidly converted into potent forms of androgen like DHT, which is the potent form of testosterone, as well as prolactin. So while DHEA and DHT are more or less healthy, youthful androgens that you want a good amount of, when you have an excess of these hormones accompanied by the hypothyroidism, the DHEA doesn't perform its normal functions, as well as the DHT, and there's an overaccumulation of it. And again, with the low thyroid hormone, estrogen and prolactin tend to be overproduced, and it's the estrogen that actually stimulates your adrenals to produce the DHEA and the cortisol in excess. So it's not necessarily just androgens or testosterone. That would be an impartial picture of what's actually happening. It's the excess of DHEA accompanied by the low thyroid. And according to my clinical research and understanding, something as simple as taking a desiccated thyroid supplement tends to correct not just the hirsutism, so the facial hair growth, the body hair growth, but also hair issues in general. So the thyroid hormone is majorly responsible for the proper rate and growth of facial hair, body hair, etc. So when the thyroid's low, you tend to have these issues of body hair growth, which is again governed by excess estrogen, DHEA and cortisol in the overactive adrenal glands, and the loss of hair on the head. So again, according to clinical research, I would just recommend taking a desiccated thyroid supplement, as well as, of course, getting all the adequate nutrients you need for proper thyroid function. So in addition to all of this information, definitely just watch the videos I've made on thyroid health. Take the thyroid herbs. Ashwagandha is the premier thyroid anti-stress herb, amazing for any sort of hair issues whatsoever. And in addition to that, you need things like cholesterol, vitamin A, saturated fats, and all your fat-soluble vitamins to promote proper thyroid function, amongst lowering stress, which impairs thyroid function. All right, so that brings us to our third question. This one reads, what are the best herbs for female androgenic alopecia, and is it reversible? So I decided to answer this question because it kind of piggybacks off the last one. So as I mentioned a minute ago, hirsutism, or facial hair growth and body hair growth in women, is usually accompanied by androgenic alopecia. So there's usually improper hair growth occurring on the head, because those two things share similar pathologies, which is, again, the excess production of stress chemicals like cortisol, estrogen, and prolactin, accompanied by low thyroid hormone. So the pathology of the male androgenic alopecia is actually quite similar to the female androgenic alopecia. When you have elevated levels of cortisol and prolactin, cortisol impairs your hair follicle's ability to utilize glucose, and your hair follicle is a very inefficient metabolic or energy producing mini organ. So in other words, your hair follicle, it needs glucose to grow amongst all your other cells, but the hair follicle in particular is very inefficient at producing glucose. So when you're stressed out, that cortisol impairs your body's ability to use glucose, and that's why you'll notice that your hair tends to be affected almost immediately by stress. If you get into a trauma or a severe accident or any sort of traumatic stress, you'll notice your hair quality changes almost immediately. That's because of how dependent it is on glucose and how stress impairs your body's ability to use glucose. So that's one of the characteristics of all sorts of hair loss, male and female, as well as the elevated levels of prolactin, which suppress thyroid function. And your thyroid hormone has been referred to by physiologists as mitochondrial hair medicine. So just like glucose, your hair follicle needs oxygen and thyroid hormone. And it's because thyroid hormone is what drives oxygen to your hair follicles. So when thyroid hormone is low, not only does your hair follicle become starved of glucose, but it also is starved of oxygen, the two basic things it needs to grow and be healthy. So as I talked about in the video on herbs for hair loss in general, the best herbs I think for hair loss for lowering the prolactin and lowering the excess cortisol would be number one, ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is clinically proven to lower both cortisol and prolactin while increasing testosterone, which you need for normal healthy hair growth. The second herb I would recommend is Polyrhacus black ant, which contains an abundant amount of zinc, and zinc suppresses prolactin levels up to 50%. So it's a great inhibitor of prolactin, as well as a mediator for the production of dopamine and testosterone. And lastly, I'd probably recommend the supplementation of Mucuna pruriens, which is also a great inhibitor of prolactin through its dopaminergic effects. So to recap, ashwagandha, black ant, and Mucuna, premier hair tonic. It corrects all of the hormonal imbalances that cause all sorts of hair loss, again, male or female. Alright guys, so that brings this week's FAQ and Freebie Friday to a close. If you've enjoyed it and found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for future videos just like this. And also, if you're interested in winning some free herbs or medicinal mushrooms, all you have to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel again, give this video a thumbs up, and just drop a comment or question in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching guys, and we'll see you next time.